Welcome back to this episode of Rewiring Health. I'm your host, Kelly Kessler. Now, if you're listening to this, I want you to ask yourself this question. In the last week or month, have you ever said to yourself, I just want to feel a little bit more peace in my life? Now, if you're anything like me, and probably most of the people that listen to this, you have probably said yes. And so I want to share with you, I just created a free guide on how to reclaim your inner peace. It's literally all the tools that I do on a daily basis to feel like I have some sense of control in my life. So I'll link it in the show notes below, but I definitely recommend you downloading that, grabbing it. It will give you specific tips every day on how you can start to reclaim your peace, honor your self-loyalty, and bring harmony to your nervous system. It's literally that mind-body connection that makes all the difference. So again, I'll link in the show notes. If you want more peace in your life, you want to feel like you're free in your body, it'll be there for you. So today I want to talk about something that impacts so many of us, and that is self-sabotage. I know I have experienced this plenty of times in my life, and I had no idea why I would keep just going after something and then somehow end up in the same position I started in, or just feel like I was almost like giving up on myself time and time again and feel this like cycle of frustration. And it was only when I understood why this was happening that it released me from this vicious cycle. So tell me if you can relate to this. I know I've been there, but have you ever felt like you wanted to make some big impact in your health? You either wanted to start to feel better, maybe lose weight, or just be more functional and just do things at a higher level. So you are gung-ho, you go and start this exercise program, you change your diet, you start cutting out sugar, you're drinking more water, and you're feeling good. And you're like, oh, I'm crushing this. Like, you're a few weeks in, you're starting to notice results, you're getting this momentum going, and you're like, oh yeah, like this is awesome. Like I'm doing this thing. And so you continue to go, and then you have like a little slip up. Maybe life happened and you have one day where you didn't get to the exercise, and you're like, all right, that happened. And then all of a sudden there were like a few days that you didn't get to exercise, or maybe you didn't get to your water. And then before you know it, it almost feels like it's like slipping out of your grasp. But all these things that were going so well start to just fizzle out. And there's like a loss of energy, that momentum, that energy that you had behind it just feels like it got lost. And before you know it, you're back in the same pattern of behavior that you were in maybe a few months ago. And what makes it worse is not only that you're now repeating the same things that you started with, but now you probably have this tendency to guilt and shame yourself. Shame yourself for feeling like, why couldn't I just stick with that? I put all that work in for months and I was feeling good. There was no reason for me not to stick with that. Like, why am I back to where I started? And now it's that shame that you put on yourself that just perpetuates those lower feelings and then makes it even harder to get started next time. I don't know if you can relate to that, but I know I've been there, and I know so many people who've experienced this. And it becomes such a vicious cycle of feeling like they want change in their life. They do the work, they put in the effort, and then they somehow end up in the same place they started at. And then they feel very shameful of it and wonder why they couldn't just stick with it. And then they start to have this inner dialogue of like, what's wrong with me? Why couldn't I do that? Oh, I'm just like, I always just give up on myself. And now we start to create that wiring that is essentially a self-fulfilling prophecy, that maybe they had these thoughts and now they're just continuing on the cycle. And so if you can relate to this, I want to share with you, why do we self-sabotage? I mean, cognitively, if you look at it, there's no reason why we wouldn't want better for ourselves. Like if we're feeling better and our life is changing, like why wouldn't we just continue on that path? Well, I'm going to share with you 3 reasons why we tend to self-sabotage. So number 1, it comes down to self-worth. And this is very subconscious. So what I mean is that you're not actually saying to yourself, I'm not worthy of something better. It's more of that your subconscious mind is telling you that you are at a certain level and that you are worthy of a certain level. So maybe you wanted to lose 30 pounds, but your subconscious mind is saying like, no, you're this person who looks like this. You're that person who feels like this, because you've never upgraded your worth to realize that you are worthy of more. You're worthy of drawing more into your life. And so you may have carried these messages throughout your entire life of feeling like you're not enough and that whatever you do is not enough. And again, as I'm saying this, you may not even realize that this is going on behind the scene because maybe you've lived your whole life feeling a certain way about yourself, and you haven't realized that it's literally become the driving force of what's going on in your life. So self-worth becomes our thermostat. And so if you think about a thermostat, if you go and set the thermostat in a room and it's set at 80 degrees, whether it is 100 degrees outside or 30 degrees outside, it's going to keep it at 80 degrees within that room. And so that is essentially what self-worth is. Wherever your self-worth is that you will continue to go down to the level of your self-worth. And so even if you push yourself to that 100 degrees by exercising, dieting, whatever it is that you're trying to do to change something, or maybe it's changing your habits with sleep, or maybe it's you're changing your habits, your screen time, you may push yourself towards that 100-degree mark, but somehow you're going to end up back at that 80 degrees. Whatever your thermostat is set at, whatever your self-worth is set at, it will find a way to come back to what it knows. And so your self-worth is a huge driving force subconsciously in keeping you stuck where you are. That is the first one. So in order to change our external circumstances, we have to change our level of worth and realize that we are worthy of the changes that we desire in our life. And we have to start with our subconscious mind and allowing our mind to see that we truly are worthy of that. Number 2 is safety. So the thing about safety is that your nervous system dictates how safe you feel. So what I mean is that your nervous system loves the familiar. It loves the known. It loves things that are comfortable. So even if something doesn't serve you, it's familiar. That's why when you're at a job that you maybe hate, it's still so hard to leave it because you know it. It's familiar. You know the people, you know what to expect, you know the ins and outs. It feels safe. You know how much money you're making. You know your time off. I mean, there's so many things that are familiar to you that your system feels safe in it because it's known it. And to even go outside of that, even if it was to a better position or a better anything, it's going to feel scary because it's unknown. So you're automatically, subconsciously, your system is going to resist that. It's going to resist anything that is new or different, even if it's good for you. So let's go back to the exercise routine. So if you're trying to feel healthy and you want to feel better at yourself and you're trying to integrate maybe a 30-minute run or walk in the day, that's different. It's new. So automatically you're going to meet the subconscious resistance of like, oh, I don't want to do this. Like, and then you start the dialogue of like, well, I'll do it tomorrow. I can wait. And here come those subconscious messages that try to keep you stuck in what you know. It wants to keep you stuck in what you are familiar with because to the subconscious mind and the nervous system, that is safety. And so anything new, anything different that you are trying to implement in your life is going to create this stress response in your system. And naturally, if you're feeling like it's stressful, even if it's a good change, and it feels uncomfortable, there's going to be a resistance in that. You're going to start to get into that cycle of like self-doubt. Like, should I do this? Like, if it feels this uncomfortable, maybe it's not right for me. But it's truly in that discomfort is where you can actually grow and create the life you desire. It's in that familiar comfort that is where you stay stuck. And that is how your subconscious mind keeps you stuck because it's familiar, it's safe, and it's known, even if it's not what you desire in your life. Number 3 is imposter syndrome. So imposter syndrome is where you feel like someone's going to find you out because you don't belong there. And so this is something that can impact anybody and does impact nearly everybody. Whether you're a high level executive or anyone else, you feel a level of imposter syndrome because there's something that in your mind tells you that you're not worthy of being in that position. You feel like someone's going to find out that you don't have the qualifications to actually do or say or be that person. And so this, again, is another way for your subconscious mind to keep you stuck. It's telling you that you don't have what it takes. You're not enough to be in this position. You need to know more. You need to be more. You're not enough. It's all those messages that we hold on to in our subconscious mind that try to pull us back down to that familiar again. So that imposter syndrome, when we rise up to anything that is different, anything that is expansive, is going to try to pull us back and tell us that you don't belong there. You belong here. You belong lower than where you're trying to go. So that's the third way that our subconscious mind is trying to keep us stuck, and thus will self-sabotage. It will start to change the behavior in which you're engaging in because it wants to pull you back down to what is safe and familiar. And so that whole imposter syndrome, all the dialogue that we have in those areas, I had it here when I was starting the podcast initially. I'm like, I'm not a podcaster. Who am I to do this? Like, it was scary. There's so many unfamiliar things I experienced when I started a podcast. And there was a lot of imposter syndrome initially of like, I did not identify as a podcaster initially because it was new. So there were so many messages I had to work through within my subconscious mind that told me not to do it or just forget it. Like, you're not that person. You don't have enough. You don't know what to say. There's so many things that I had to work through to get to a place where now I identify as someone who podcasts. Like, this has become a part of me. But there was a lot of resistance initially to get to that place. And so there were a lot of opportunities where I could have self-sabotaged along the way because of the resistance trying to pull me back. And so I wanted to share this with you today because if you are someone who has experienced self-sabotage in any aspect of your life, whether it's financially, that maybe you tried to save and save and save and save, and then you just blow all the money on something and you're like, oh my gosh, what did I just do? That is part of that subconscious mind that is saying that, like, no, this is where you're at. So it can be really challenging in so many aspects: health, wealth. Everything in your life can create a pattern of self-sabotage. But when you can recognize what's going on behind the scenes, what are the root causes of your self-sabotage, that allows you to realize that there's not something wrong with you. You're not just someone who can't hold your word to yourself. You are just experiencing something within your subconscious mind that is trying to keep you safe and protected. And then that allows you to see that what you can do to change that is to actually dive into the subconscious mind, recognize some of those limiting beliefs that you maybe have carried with you for years. And once you can start to change that, reprogram that, elevate your worth, and realize that you are not destined to be in this position. Self-sabotage is not your end all be all. It actually becomes a sign that there's something to look at within your subconscious mind. So if you have self-sabotage in the past, or maybe you're in the middle of sabotaging yourself and you're starting to realize like, oh yeah, I am kind of dropping off that thing, I want you to realize that you have the power. You have the power in every moment to create the change that you want in your life. And that those self-sabotaging behaviors are only little signs, little tips, little things that are just giving you an indication that there's something deeper within your subconscious mind that is keeping you stuck. And once you can dive into that, that's when you release yourself from those self-sabotaging behaviors. That's when you start to know yourself better. That's when you can start to see when you make that first action of taking yourself back down to that starting level, you can start to change and transform that. And that is the beauty of the subconscious mind, that is always adaptable. But just like our phones that need updates regularly, we too need an update. So if you're getting alerted that your phone needs a software update, you're probably pretty quick to hit that and make sure everything is working and functioning well with your apps and everything. But when's the last time you did that with your mind? So this is what we need to understand, because most of the programming we have is created from the ages of 0 to 7. And it is created by the people that we looked up to, any authority figure. It could be parents, teachers, anybody that we heard or saw or were exposed to that were in a place of an authoritative role. We trusted everything they said and everything they did. And it created a wiring in our brain that has been carried with us throughout our entire life until we decide how we want to function, until we decide that we don't want that wiring that was created from our childhood, until we decide that there is more to our life and that we can create more. Once we start to understand where our subconscious mind is, that becomes the key to unlocking everything you desire in your life. So I hope this helps you to understand some of the reasons why you may be self-sabotaging. And I also hope it takes some of that shame away of feeling like maybe the thoughts of that you've maybe had, like, what's wrong with me? Why do I keep doing this? Take that shame away, give yourself some grace. And now you know a little bit more about what is going on behind the scenes. So thank you so much for joining me today. And I really just hope this brought some clarity to you and allow you to move forward in your life and actually get what you desire by recreating and reprogramming your subconscious mind.